Hey guys, it's Vision here, and today we're going to talk about something I've always wanted to work on and kind of have in the past, and that is a Phoenix Wright fan game. Now in this video series, I just want to talk about different projects and different franchises I've always wanted to work on, but for some reason or another I haven't yet. And just to warn you, this doesn't mean I'm going to start making some other random game and stop working on Epic Paper Mario. Rather, this gives you a window into the kind of things I want to work on, the kind of things I like, and basically just my development process, how I decide what to work on, how I decide what not to work on, which can be just as important once you get to this level in, I guess, fan game making. So the first video game in this series you're going to take a look at is Phoenix Wright. And it's something I've always wanted to work on since playing it back, I don't know, I guess like 5 years ago? Maybe more? I don't know. It's been, yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, it's always been a really interesting style of game because it's not like pretty much any other game I've played. I mean, it's a visual novel, it's a detective game, it's kind of like a TV show in a way, but still a game. And that's always been interesting to me, and this basically the writing that you have to do for that. And that's also why I probably would never actually make a Phoenix Wright case. Not that I wouldn't know how to, or that working with the sprites or the scripting or anything would be too difficult, because when it comes down to it, the games are actually really simple. It's all about your inventory and the situation, and just combining those two things. So yeah, the reason why I probably wouldn't make a Phoenix Wright game is because the writing. Not only does it have to be enjoyable, but the writing is the biggest part of the game. Your players aren't really going to be doing much other than reading what you write, whether that's to find out contradictions for the case, or whether that's just to get the story moving along, to develop the characters and all that kind of thing. So, I mean, I think I'm a pretty decent writer, and C Division is probably better, at least when it comes to games, but it's just you have to do a lot, and that can be kind of intimidating. Some people are different though, they might find out really easy, but for me it's just, it'd take a while to feel like you've actually gotten something done, when all you've really done is written a bunch of words, and it's not going to be the final script because you have to revise what you write. You can't just put in whatever comes to your head and put that into the game. Maybe that can work for some games, but for a game like Phoenix Wright, where things have to make sense and you can't mislead the player, and you have to give them clues, and you have to foreshadow things, you kind of have to, I mean, it's a detective game, so you can't just randomly put stuff in without having it have context. Plus, a lot of the writing is dialogue, and that's how most games are. So you have to use the dialogue to do all these things, to build up the characters, to set the scenes and stuff like that. So I think it makes it even more difficult than just, say, writing a short story for class or something like that. But Phoenix Wright is still appealing because of that, for the same reason. You get to write a lot, you get to develop all these characters, and have that actually matter. And that's something that you don't really get often in, well, at least a lot of the kind of games we typically look at ICU Gigasoft, because we're kind of Nintendo fans. A lot of the games we like are games without stories that matter, and games with their own established characters, even if the characters aren't that important. And I know to an extent a lot of the characters in Phoenix Wright are kind of throwaway. They show up in that one case, and maybe they show up again in another game or in another case, but it's not really that important. However, it'd be fun to make your own kind of character and figure out how they mesh into the overall story, how they mesh into that case, their role, and how their personality affects their role in the case. And that seemed like it'd be a fun thing to do, fun thing to come up with, to make all these characters and to present the conflict, which is either the murder that happens or whatever crime that happens that starts the case, You have all these characters, and basically you play them off each other. You play them off the main character, and then you see how it all works out, and that would be kind of interesting to do. It'd be really fun. I mean, I've kind of attempted to write cases in the past. I've actually, in my attempts to make a Phoenix Wright fan game, the first one was actually on RPG Maker XP. I didn't get very far, and actually the engine I was making for that, I used it to give a presentation in class. Like, it was like on physics or something, and I just, instead of using a PowerPoint, I presented it as a Phoenix Wright case, where they were arguing about whether or not the crime was possible based on properties of physics we had learned in class. And it went over pretty well because it was pretty unique compared to other PowerPoint presentations and stuff like that. So that's why I actually made that engine. Then I was like, hey, I might as well just try and make a game. So eventually I completely redid the engine on VX. Basically, I think mostly because VX has a higher FPS than XP and it was just a stronger engine. So I started working on that for a bit, and I actually did have an idea of a game I wanted to make. I even made a intro for it. I think I had a separate YouTube channel at the time where I uploaded stuff from it. And I don't know, I actually, like most things, I got decently far enough. I had made the main system, and I had started working on like one of the first cases. But after that I realized there was no way I was going to make this game because all that writing, all the stuff like that. So I tried to reframe it as, rather than just a Phoenix Wright game, reframe it as just a case that would play out itself. You wouldn't have to collect evidence or do anything like that. It was just more like a short little TV episode kind of thing. But I never finished that, and well, the rest is history, I guess. And I guess like that's kind of why I don't want to make a Phoenix Wright game now. I mean, I know I could. I even remade the engine a second time, this time for Construct. And I did a little bit on it. I didn't really get far because I knew I'm not gonna use it for anything, at least not right now. But I'm wary of kind of wasting my time making another case, even though that would be fun to work on again and to think of characters and stuff. Just, it probably, for one, not many people would care about the game. And although that might not be a good reason, that's a pretty important reason when you're working on fan games. And not to say that that's the only thing you think about, but you have to be aware, if you put all your effort and your free time into making a fan game for an IP that's not that popular, or at least doesn't have a very strong fan base, or at least one you don't really know how to market to, how you don't know where they are, what forums they visit, that kind of thing, you don't know how to reach them, then in the end it might not be worth your time to make it. And I know that sounds kind of weird. It's not like you're trying to sell the games or anything like that, but because you're not focused on money or anything like that, you're focused on notoriety, you're focused on getting as many people you can to play this little fan game you made in your free time. So you want to see the numbers of people being interested, you want to see the downloads or the plays or the views of videos as evidence that you're able to make a product and people are able to enjoy it, and that's a pretty awesome feeling. So it's kind of a shrewd thing to say, but some fan games are just a waste of time. I don't want to be mean to people who make fan games of more obscure franchises, fan games of games that aren't popular or you even like. I mean, it's fine. At the end of the day, you should do what you want to. You shouldn't really be worrying about what other people think. At the same time, I think I've gotten to the point where, well, I guess the older you get, the more valuable your time gets, and you begin to realize, you can't just spend X amount of hours working on this thing when you have all this stuff to do. You have a job, you have school, you have responsibilities, blah blah blah. You've heard that before. So yeah, I got really off topic there, but that's kind of the thought process behind making fan games in general. And to bring it back to Phoenix Wright, I mean, I could see myself working on it again, but it would probably be a while from now. I mean, right now I'm on the fan game hold thanks to Epic Paper Mario. I'm not gonna start any project, especially not a project that would be as big and time consuming as that. I'd want to be able to have a clear idea of how much time it would take to make the game too. So, I mean, not have to be, of course, after Paper Mario, and I don't have a time schedule for that, at least not what I want to share publicly. So it's, I mean, I don't know, it also depends on where the main franchise continues to go. Since the franchise is in 3D now, there aren't going to be new sprites to use and stuff like that, which I'm not too worried about. I don't have a problem doing sprite edits, or I'll just straight up using the same sprites but creating my own characters from them, that kind of thing. I don't mind doing that. I hope people wouldn't mind that too much, but I don't know. That's kind of a logistics thing. I don't think it would be a big deal in the end. But I don't know, it is a franchise that is still interesting to watch, still interesting to pay attention to see where it goes. And it would be fun to make a case. Or, I don't know, I mean, I even got to the point where I was deciding, okay, I'm probably not going to make a full-fledged game, that would be too hard. Maybe I can make a weekly web series, that kind of thing. And I had gotten started on that idea, like I had said, but eventually it just kind of fell out of love with it, I guess, and it was just like, I'll move on to something else, which is what I do a lot. But I don't know, I put in an insane amount of effort when I first started working on it. I even made an intro to the series. I called it Crime and Punishment Brothers-in-Law. Or no, Crime and Punishment was something else. It was like I was working on two of these Phoenix Wright based webisode things. The first one was a serious one called Brothers-in-Law, which is like this normal Phoenix Wright game, but with an overarching story. And I was going to make weekly videos of that or something. The other was called Crime and Punishment, which was just a bunch of jokes that were like 1 minute long little scenes from the courtroom or from Phoenix Wright. And they all had like some sort of punchline or something. Typically puns, which is why it was called Crime and Punishment. But yeah, I made like 6 of those, and I made them on a separate YouTube channel, so most of you probably have never heard of them, and I don't know, I might even, if I can find them, I might link to them or something like that, or re-upload them. That might be interesting. But yeah, I guess that was quite a while ago, maybe 2011 I want to say. Or was it earlier? Anyways, I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Phoenix Wright and whether or not I make a fan game on it. Overall, I mean, it's one of my favorite series, one of my favorite franchises, but most likely I wouldn't make a fan game out of it, although it's still possible. But I guess actually what I want to talk about now is if I did decide to go with it, how would I do that? First of all, I would definitely use Construct 2 as opposed to the engine I made in RPG Maker VX. Construct 2 is just, it's a lot more versatile than RPG Maker. RPG Maker is really good at data storage, which is what data you use for RPGs, and other than your inventory of evidence, Phoenix Wright doesn't use that data. It doesn't use your heroes, doesn't use classes, weapons, all that kind of thing, doesn't use any of that information. And RPG Maker isn't really well optimized, and the games have to be downloaded, so I wouldn't use that. Construct 2 would probably be a lot better option. It can run in the browser, so people wouldn't have to download the game. The game wouldn't be that big anyway. But yeah, it'd just be a lot more versatile, it'd be a lot easier to use for the players too. It could just be it would support both keyboard and mouse and gamepad, so that wouldn't be an issue either. And I guess what the kind of style I would go for, an idea I had was doing kind of an open-ended case thing where the case would proceed this X far in a week or something. You could play it up to a certain point, and then using data based on the choices people made, the choices of all the players, the choices made by all the players, I would then continue the story from there. So let's say if during, I don't know, the evidence gathering period, 90% of the players were able to find a certain piece of evidence, then I would, next week when I added more to the game, maybe some evidence that I had mentioned or some evidence I had put into the game wouldn't come up in court, and maybe other ones would, that kind of thing. So I would want maybe make a community-based dynamic kind of game where the canon actions of Phoenix or whoever the protagonists were would be determined by what the average player did, and each week the story would slightly change based on that. I think that could be an interesting thing. It would encourage people to discuss what would happen and what's going on, rather than people just playing the game at their own pace. So yeah, it would be kind of an experience kind of thing for those who are playing it when it's coming out, so that each week together new things would be happening and people will be able to discuss and predict what's going on too. But for people who came in late, they could just play their normal Phoenix Wright game with everything already created and all the kinds of what's important evidence already decided. So it'd be kind of targeting two different groups of people, and I think that'd be a cool experience for people to have, to feel like they're a part of a game that's kind of alive. And I guess that'd be interesting because, you know, you can find the guide and see what all the choices you're supposed to make in the Phoenix Wright game, and then just play that kind of thing. So people typically do that if they just want to see a story and don't really care too much about finding the right contradictions and stuff like that. But I always felt like when I play those games, like, man, I should be able to present this there, or I should be able to use this as evidence or something like that. So it'd be kind of cool to do that through this community function, where if enough people found this evidence, or if enough people said that, oh, this was interesting, or you should be able to do this or that, then the game could kind of react to that. Or yeah, it kind of be in an organic thing. That could be cool. So yeah, that'd be, if I was going to make a Phoenix Wright game, that's how I would frame it. I think it would be a fun thing to do. Might be slightly more complicated than some other projects potentially, but I feel like it would pay off if I could get a big community and get people interested in it. But I don't actually think I can do that. That's the thing. Phoenix Wright is relatively popular, but it does kind of have an established community. They have their own case makers, that kind of thing. And I think their needs are kind of already being met in that area. So I wouldn't feel too obligated to kind of say, hey, I have this new thing, let me barge into your community, that kind of thing. So yeah, just to sum it up, it's an interesting franchise. You could do some interesting things with the games. I probably wouldn't make a Phoenix Wright fan game, at least not anytime soon, but I do have some ideas of how I do it. Anyways, thanks for listening, and if you have any comments, just leave them below. Please like and subscribe for more videos if this kind of thing is interesting to you. And if there's any fan game you would want to work on, if you have the ability or the knowledge or the resources, just let me know. That'd be kind of interesting to hear, because I know a lot of you are Mario fans, so maybe if you have other interests, let me know. Thanks.